Look at this man. He looks good. You can't say that Joe Biden looks better than Donald Trump. So I was pretty happy when I saw that Time magazine actually put this real, like, stoic picture of him. And obviously, I'm going to read it. So we're just going to do that right now. Unfiltered. We're going to go and read the full transcript of Donald Trump's interview with Time magazine. And if I had to guess, it has to be something about the border. So let's just hit it. First question. Here we go. Let's start with day one, January 20th, 2025. You have said that you will take a suite of aggressive actions on the border and on immigration. He immediately cuts and says yes, which I like. Thank you, Jesus. On the first day in office in 2025, God willing, am I right? He vows to launch the largest deportation operation in American history. And he has no problem saying that that's actually absolutely true. The craziest thing about this, as I'm reading, he says that there's about 15 million, quote, 15 million and maybe as many as 20 million by the time that Biden is out of his presidential term. Now, I've talked about this before, but the numbers for illegal immigration are actually so buck wild and very dishonest. Right now, our US government is telling us that we have 10.5 million illegal immigrants, which is actually a 0.5 drop from last year, which was at 11 million. So think about that number right there. Now, back in 2018, Yale University released a study countering the numbers that the US Census Bureau put out in regards to illegal immigration. And the Yale big brains, hey-yo, Ivy League, all that stuff, right? Not that it matters anymore if you're an Ivy League school or not, because education is just an indoctrination station. But if you actually give some credence to these Yale researchers, they found, if they took the numbers up until 2016, that what the U.S. government's numbers, they were off by 50%. They estimated from numbers all the way up until 2016, before the insanity of the border crisis that we have right now, that we had about 20 million illegal immigrants in the United States. So I find it very hard to believe that there would be 10.5 million illegal immigrants in this Joe Biden administration. So I already love the fact that Donald Trump just goes, yeah, it's probably between 15 to 20 million. I think that's a fair estimate, 100%. And I also love that the interviewer doesn't even ask about those numbers. He's just like, okay, that checks out. So I feel like real reporters actually know that those are the fair numbers. And so I appreciate this person at Time Magazine. Way to go. What is your plan? So Trump's plan, everyone always wants to know, like, how do we actually fix illegal immigration, and how do we do that with Donald Trump? Because we talk about the border wall, but you need more than just the wall. Down for the wall. Love the wall, but you need more. Trump says that he'll be using local law enforcement. The reporter asks, does that include the U.S. military? He says it sure would. Then he talks about the National Guard in Minneapolis. Good times. I do remember that. The reporter goes to ask whether or not, he says, hey, you can't deploy the U.S. military against civilians. The best part of this question, or this prompt, is that Trump just goes, yeah, but they're not civilians, so this works. Immigration is the top two most pressing issues for Americans now. I think the Gallup poll just came out a couple weeks ago, and that was for Democrats and Republicans. So it's good to see, at least in the fact that people on either side of the spectrum are on board when it comes to illegal immigration. So if we all understand that that's a problem, then we understand that these aren't actually civilians. So I don't even understand why anyone would, like, raise hell over the fact that he's saying, yeah, I can use the military, I can use National Guard. These aren't civilians. Big whoop. Moving on. We have to do whatever we have to do to stop the problem. We have a major force that's forming in our country. When you see that over the last 3 weeks, 29,000 people came in from China. See, they're not all from Mexico. Don't you think it's a little racist that everybody just assumes that they're from South America? I do. There's lots of Chinese everywhere. I went to UPenn and they were literally vans, troves of Chinese people, pretty much every other day, at least weekly, that would just get dropped off in the middle of campus on Locust Walk. I don't know who funds that. Beijing, Biden, probably. Which he's also under investigation for receiving money from China that went towards his Penn Biden Center, Penn Global. Very fitting for a globalist. It's almost like everyone just does everything in plain sight and we're like, oh, it's fine. We're all very desensitized. I think that's the problem, especially when you talk about, like, the protests and stuff. In a way, these theatrics are so normalized that everyone will verbalize that they're frustrated, but we kind of just allow these radical, and I hate even using the word radical because I feel like that could be used onto us or people like me or whoever's conservative, but it's just this constant nuance that anyone that does anything vocal and loud is a radical. But I mean, it's a little nuts on the campuses, so there's that. But anyway, all right, so this is a fun one. Would that include building new migrant detention camps? Trump says that we wouldn't have to do much of that. So I'm happy with my taxpayer dollars. That ain't going to change. Will you build new ones? It was done by Obama in the form of jails, prisons, and I got blamed for that for 4 months. I remember that. Trump's not wrong. Kids in cages, AOC, everybody crying at the gates saying, "Oh, help." BS. BS. That's all I got to say. This is after border detentions in McAllen, Texas. This is where Biden and Obama did their sweet nothings and brought in a bunch of people that are going to be able to vote in our next election. It's never a matter of whether or not Trump's going to win. Like, Trump's going to win just like he won last election, but whether or not he actually gets to step foot into the Oval Office, that's the real question. So we should probably rephrase that a little bit. How are you going to get state and local police departments to participate in this? Under what authority is the president able to do that? I don't know. The fact that he's president, that kind of works out well. Does that mean these questions are kind of boring? I like what Trump is saying, but I need a little spice up in here. Let's see. Does that mean that you would create funding initiatives from the federal government for state and local police departments? So that's an interesting one, right? Because this actually would affect taxpayers. Trump does say it could very well be, I want to give police immunity from prosecution because the liberal groups or the progressive groups, depending on what they want to be called, they're very strong on the fact they want to leave everybody in. Sanctuary cities are failing all over the place. I really believe that there's pent-up demand to end sanctuary cities. Because both sides really do. If you believe in the Gallup poll, I don't know. Polls to me, I'm a little, I've never believed in a poll ever since they said that Hillary Clinton was going to be president. So there's that. And then they said that Obama was going to be president for both those, the first and the second campaign run. And I'm like, well, no darn, because everybody's like so afraid to think that other people are going to think that they're a racist. So yeah, of course they're going to answer a poll and be like, yes, I'm voting for him. It's fine. And then they actually ended up doing it, which was unfortunate, but whatever. So I think this is kind of nice. The question was kind of from the Time magazine interviewer is whether or not this money for these incentives would actually be out of the taxpayer pocket. But fair point. Everyone is affected, whether you want to believe it or not, by illegal immigration. So I would be happy to put my money towards that. And no, like, food shortages and things like, I'd like to just live, but here we are, Joe Biden. Alrighty, so let's see. So by your own telling, these are new, bold, and aggressive actions that you would take. Okay, I don't think that they're bold. Again, they're just reasonable. Okay, the border wall. All right, there's a lot about it. Okay, codifying the dreamer protections. That's like one that's kind of like slipped under the rug for a hot second. I was kind of tired about talking about dreamers, but Time magazine isn't, so they had to ask. Okay, he didn't really answer anything about the dreamers, which fine. I'm all about politicians being, I would love for them to be honest and kind of just like lay everything out when it comes to their campaign promises. But at this point, like he's said it plenty the last two campaign cycles that he ran through. So that's like the next thing they're going to latch on to. We already keep hearing about abortion, so I'm just like, whatever. Moving on. Okay. Let's see. Would you try to pass a law through Congress for protecting police? They really just want to like get them. He says, excuse me. Would you push a bill through Congress to do that? We'd have to take a look at that. Okay. That was the best press this interviewer had. And then now he says, let's shift to the economy. Okay. You have floated a 10% tariff on all imports and a more than 60% tariff on Chinese imports. Can I just ask you now, is that your plan? Trump says it might be more than that. Hey, yo, I like that. That's good news for everybody. A derivative of that. But it'll be he says, they steal our jobs, they steal our wealth, they steal our country, they steal our intellectual property. You got fentanyl. We all hear the same things over and over again. So, okay, nothing new, nothing crazy, nothing controversial. Mainstream media should be happy with that answer. Let's see. Most economists, and I know not all, there isn't unanimity on this, but economists say the tariffs increase prices. Let's see. I think it'll be a lack of loss for our country because what will happen and what other countries do very successfully, China being a leader of it, India is very difficult to deal with. India and I get along, which is true. President Modi really did like Trump. He does not like Biden at all, which is like kind of embarrassing. Let's see. Brazil is difficult. You talk about the USMCA. If you want to build a plant inside of our country, that's okay, and employ our people. And that's basically what I'm doing. Okay. And that's that. I like this part as I scroll. The question is, sir, the economy was certainly humming during your first term. There's no question about it. Like that. That's true. Your trade war with China cost the US economy 316 billion and 300,000 jobs. This is per Bloomberg Economics. Trump says, yes, we had the greatest economy in history. So it's not a big deal. So how did it cost us if we had such a good economy? Everybody admits it. If we didn't do that, we would have no steel industry right now. They were dumping steel all over the country, 50% on steel. It was going to go higher. They love me because I saved their industry. I had owners of steel companies and executives of steel companies come up and start crying when they see me. I believe that. I see a lot of people have tears for Trump. They say nobody helped us until you came along. China was dumping massive amounts of steel into our country and we saved the steel industry. Okay, I'm skipping through a lot of these because this is very lengthy and there's nothing new here if you really just want the Cliff Note version of Time Magazine. So we're just going to jump into everyone's favorite topic as of late, which is abortion. Question is, your allies in the Republican Study Committee, which makes up about 80% of the GOP caucus, have included the Life of Conception Act in their 2025 budget proposal. The measure would grant full legal rights to embryos. Is that your position as well? Trump, say it again. What are you asking? I also was confused. The Life at Conception Act would grant full legal rights to embryos included in their 2025 budget proposal. Is that your position? I still don't understand that one, but okay. Trump says, as he has continuously said, I'm leaving everything up to the states. The states are going to be different. Some states will say yes and some states will say no. Texas is different than Ohio, which I totally would agree. They keep pressing him whether or not he would veto this bill or if they think that specific act is something that he would support. Then they continue to ask whether or not he thinks that women should be able to get the abortion pill. He says that he has an opinion on that, but he's not going to say it, which I think is actually really interesting. I have pretty strong views on that and I will be releasing it probably over the next week. So that is an interesting one. We will follow that reporting. Now the 15-week ban, let's talk about that one. I don't have to be comfortable or uncomfortable. The states are going to make that decision. So the states are going to have to be comfortable with that, not me. Now, it's funny that we always talk about abortions in general because I've said this once, I'll say it again. Abortions went up 10% in an increase since post Roe v. Wade. So you can, not that I'm happy about that, but you can still get them. Come one, come all, you can still get an abortion, all right? It's an abortion that you're able to get an abortion, in my mind. But you still can if you want. And they increased. Nothing's changing. Planned Parenthood gets like $633 million in just government revenue. In government funding. Not to mention they get a couple billion, almost 2 billion, 1.7 billion in revenue as of last year. So they're doing just fine. Now also it's like if you just really just water it down to like, okay, what happens when you get an abortion? A baby dies. What happens when you kill someone? You get tried in the state that you killed them in, right? So if you kill a baby that is a human, you get tried by your state. Leave it up to the states. Like, why do we even bother? Why do we even bother? That's exactly what he's saying. So just like keep it simple. Keep it easy. I like that. Let's see. Okay, now I live in Florida now. How do you plan to vote in the state's abortion referendum this November that would overturn DeSantis' 6-week ban? Well, I said I thought 6 weeks is too severe, which interesting. So Trump is saying that, which I think a lot of people would probably be really surprised that he would even respond that way. And I'll say I actually was at some of these protests locally in Florida. And I did talk to a lot of college students from Hillsborough Community College. And they shared with me, it was women, they had shared with me that they felt the 6-week ban was too tight. And then their explanation being, if you have an inconsistent period, which is pretty common these days, like birth control isn't a guarantee for you to have consistency, and birth control is bad anyway. So it's like most people are getting off it as they are. And the other thing being that everyone's ingesting seed oils amongst a ton of other environmental factors. So women do not have consistent periods, and you certainly could miss your period or be super late and not be pregnant. So I'm not saying I'm for or not for the latter, but I'm just throwing that out there. So it's like interesting that Trump actually responded on the level of like a 20-year-old college girl, because those were the girls that I was speaking to. So people say he's too old, but I think he's pretty hip and trendy. There's that. All right, let's keep scrolling through, see if there's anything else juicy, but I feel like we're hitting the topics. Mr. President, you've talked a lot about your plan to obliterate the deep state. What exactly does that mean? I like this one. We're looking at a lot of different things. Civil service is both very good and very bad. You have some people that are protected and that shouldn't be protected. It means we want to get rid of bad people who have not done a good job in the government. Now, okay, I think this is the last portion that I would like to leave off with. I'm just going to keep scrolling on through for a hot second before I respond to this. Donald Trump put an executive order called Schedule F, and he put that at the end of his administration. And the purpose of getting that executive order out was the F stands for you're fired. If you don't do your job, you're fired in the government. It is a 1% chance to get fired from the government, okay? I had a government job my whole life, all right? And I had all my benefits taken care of. The government shut down. I did not freak out about it at all. I could care less. That meant I could just like work from home or not work at all. Big whoop, I'm still getting a paycheck, doesn't matter. It is the easiest thing to be a government employee. It truly is. And you get great health care, okay? Or at least it's all paid for. So I'm not saying it's great, especially now that we're like trying to push this like socialized medicine type of thing. But it is very easy to be a government employee, okay? It's pretty easy to get into the government, and it's a hell of a lot easier to stay on in it. It takes about more than a full calendar year to actually get fired. It's like 370 odd days. Nuts. So he's on the right track when it comes to Schedule F. These people are so darn slow. The government is very reactive. Let me tell you, I didn't even have a degree in IT, and my very first job was working in White House IT on software and hardware. How did I do that? Not because I'm smart, but because everybody else is too slow and dumb. That's it, okay? On top of that, then you get people, I had coworkers, I've said this before, I feel like no one even cared when I mentioned it, but just to throw it out there again, I had coworkers that I worked with that literally shredded up pieces of paper. They worked in Office of Records Management, and they were very frustrated with Trump for whatever reason because they were liberal and hated him so much. And they went on CNN and they brought a huge bag of papers and then just like spewed them all over on live television on CNN. I was watching it as I was a White House employee, like, oh my God, I can't believe I actually know those people, because I thought they were really nice. And they made a mockery and were like, oh, we're part of records management and we can't do our job and have all the records managed because Donald Trump gave us all these shredded papers because he's enraged and a crazy dictator. Wasn't true. Wasn't true at all. CNN cut to break. They didn't even re-air the segment because it was that embarrassing. But no one knows it because it's like a blip in the matrix. It was like 30 seconds long and they were not on air much longer. Anyway, so I'm down a clown for Schedule F. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm reading this interview. I like it. I'm down a clown with his responses for abortion, cleaning up the deep state, making sure our borders are straight, using the National Guard because these are not civilians. These are not U.S. citizens. Big whoop. And one hot scroll for anything else? No. It's fine. That's pretty much it. You don't need to read this at all. No, don't give Time Magazine any clicks. He looks good on the magazine on the front page, and I just told you the rest. So there's that.